Hey everyone, today I'm going to walk you through my process for color correcting and color grading footage using only the built-in tools in Davinci Resolve and also using only some real-life footage. The clips we're going to work with were shot using only natural light, and the goal is to enhance them but also create the look and the feeling of the brand. Alright, let's dive into Davinci Resolve and get started. Alright everyone, so the first thing first is to go to the color management over here and I set it to YRGB, Y Gamma Intermediate and RAC 709A, and that's because I'm on Mac, and that's also because I prefer to use color space transform in my clips, okay? When it comes to the color space transform, I set it to RAC 2020, Canon Log 3, and that's because on my Canon R6, that's what I set it for, okay? And the output color space is Davinci Y Gamut and the Gamma is Davinci Intermediate. And that's because I want all the nodes within my two color space transform to use a full spectrum or a widest range of color. Alright, so next let's turn on the color space transform out. So the input is Davinci Y Gamut, the Gamma is Davinci Intermediate, and that's because we come from this, alright? And we want to, let's say, transform it to RAC 709A and Gamma 2.2 because that's what I need for YouTube videos. And now it's time to do some color correction, okay? I go to the vector scope, I turn on the lower part over here, I go to the primaries, and I move lead lift to the middle like this. The reason for that is because the low part is shadows and dark areas. And in order to balance it, let's say we have to place it in the middle like this. The same goes for the midtones. And in this case, I use a gamma. And let's move this more or less to the middle like this, okay? Technically, it's way, way better. Yep. All right. The reason I'm not doing the highlights part is because we don't have any highlights at all. For the exposure, I prefer to use a parade, and I also prefer to use the HDR tool. So let's increase it. I think 640 is optimal. Alright, and that's good enough for me. So it's time for the contrast and saturation. Let me reset it. I'm still going to use a parade scope over here. And in this case, I prefer still to stick to the HDR and lower the shadow a bit, yeah. And increase the blackest part of the image. Many things come to, well, at least in my opinion, to your preferences and also what your client wants. And if you yourself are your clients, well, what you want, yeah. In my opinion, that's fine. Yeah, maybe even too much, but we can still fix it later on. Okay? When it comes to saturation, let me see how I can just increase a bit. I still prefer not to overdo things and just change things later on. So now I turn on the skin. Yeah. I use the slice tool, the color slice tool, the new one, and it's really good in my opinion. Just to make very subtle changes. And in this case, I go to the vector scope, and this line over here, if you can't see it, click on the setting button and show skin tone indicator. Okay, this line over here tells you if the color of your skin is correct. And so qualifier, and that makes you think, well, that it is alright. If you are still unsure that's correct, you can click on the button over here, sizing, input sizing, okay? Zoom, it's just temporary, so don't worry. 6, let's say 6. And this, as you can see, tells me that the color of the skin is actually quite right. I think this part is actually this red over here, okay? Now it's time to turn on the LUTs. And I know it looks bad, but don't worry, we're gonna fix it. What I do with the LUT most of the time is right click, composite mode, and turn on the color. And the reason for that is because I just want the colors of the LUT to affect my image and not just some contrast that might be baked into the LUT, okay? If I were to choose normal, you could see over here that the exposure change and the contrast change as well. So I just prefer to do things manually. You can find some great LUTs on this website. Let me show it to you, colorgradingcentral.com. Just scroll down, free LUTs, click on download, and just enter your details. You can get some really good free LUTs. Then we can save them. Let me show it to you where. That's a path over here where you have to save your LUT. So next I do something that is very unusual, I guess, which is I turn on the effects first, and it just works for me. And not all the time, but most of the time it just works for me. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I turn on the glow, I turn on the vignette and halation. So when it comes to the glow, I usually set it to reflecting camera and soft light. Let me show to you what it does. It just spreads the light in a way that is really pleasing to my eyes. So the vignette, well, I just use a built-in vignette. I just set it to advanced, oval, and just play around with the settings to achieve a vignette that is pleasing to my eyes and the client's eyes as well. Then this part is actually for our colors, okay? And you can just add as many as you need, but in this case, 2 is more than enough. Actually 1, I think it's enough. The wallpaper, I usually use a wallpaper if I want to change some specific colors of the image. And the HDR is the one that I use mostly to change the color of the image. In this case, I just added some blue cyan to the light parts of the image, okay? If I went overboard, let's say this, I would also affect her skin color, which in my opinion is not that good to look at. Next, the windows. I haven't done that much over here, but you could use like in this scenario, because I saw that it was affecting a lot at highs over here. I'm talking about the blue cyan part over here. You could use this one to create a window like around at eye. Then you get what I'm talking about in a few seconds. Okay, invert it. Let me show it to you. So we're just selecting all the other parts except the eye. Okay, and if you go to slice to cyan, and you can see what parts of the cyan, you can increase the saturation if you want to increase that part. And the reason I created a mask around the eye is because these would also get affected and it would become too extreme in my opinion. You could also create over here, if you really wanted to, a window around a subject if you want to enhance a BR feature, but in my opinion that's quite fine. Alright, next, texture. Most of the time I just add a bit of saturation if required. Like in this case it was 50, I just lower it to 48. If you just go overboard it looks too digital in my opinion, I just don't like it. And the last one is grain, which is great in this kind of project. Yeah, I just use a film grain built in Davinci Resolve, and I'm just changing to 35. And if you just zoom in, you can play around with the settings to get your desired result, okay? And the last node is a serial node, this one, and I call it small fix. And I use it to just make to tweak some stuff a little bit. And I prefer to place it before the LUT and before the CST out, because I don't want to affect all these nodes over here. For example, if I were to, let's do something drastic. Okay, exposure like that and saturation like that, okay? If I were to swap and place this one over here, it will be completely different. And the reason for that is because this one is feeding information to all this one over here as well. Okay, so let's place it back. Yeah. And in this scenario, we're just affecting the LUT. Would I change something over here? Not really. I'm personally just very much pleased with it. And she was going for something very soft, but of course a bit of contrast, but not too much. And in my opinion, that's really good. It looks really good. So feel free to write down in the comments if you got any question, and like and subscribe for more tutorials. And that's about it. So thanks for watching. See ya.